Alright guys, so this is the second section of Chapter 6, Chapter 6.2, and this is called Using Proportions. And we just learned in last chapter all about ratios and rates, and today we're going to use that in proportions. And, and I'd like you to take a minute to look at these words to know and pause me for now, and you can copy these in your notes and then restart me when they're copied. Okay, so a proportion is two ratios that are equal. Now, if you can recall what a ratio is, remember what a ratio is. Well, a ratio is a comparison of two numbers by division. And my kids know that I don't like to write words, so I don't use too many words when I write. So that's two numbers by division. If you want to write that out, that's fine. But proportion is setting up two ratios that are equal. Now, we've got also another word to know called cross product. And this is really cool because you can actually cross multiply a proportion. And this can be used to determine whether two ratios form a proportion. So for this example, I have A over B equals C over D. Now there's this equal sign, and that's what makes it a proportion, when two ratios are equal. Okay, so we've got this equal sign here. Now what I can do is what's called cross multiply. Okay, so I'm going to multiply across. And it kind of makes like that big X, like the cross in school bones, I think about, has that big X here. I can cross multiply. So that now becomes A times D equals B times C. It's written right here. AD equals BC. And as you can see, all I did was I did that cross product. So now, with an example, this is example 1, and this is example 2. With an example with some numbers, we're going to do a cross product here of 2 times 9 and a cross product here of 6 times 3. So this being 18 equals 8. Okay, so this first example, I want you to determine whether this pair of ratio is going to form a proportion. Okay, now when it forms a proportion, remember in our notes before, it means that the two ratios are equal. Okay, so I want to know if this pair of ratio is going to form a proportion, which means that these ratios are going to be. Okay, so I've got 1/3 and 3/9. Now, for some of you, this might be pretty obvious that yes, they are equal. Because what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to multiply the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, and I'm going to get 3/9. Well, in case you didn't see that, I want to show you something because there's going to be ratios that are not in your face obvious. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to do 1/3 equals 3/9. You do your cross multiplying, and you have 1 times 9 equals 3 times 3. And 9 equals 9. Does 9 equal 9? Yes, it does. So yes, this is a proportion. Okay, so this is the second example. Now this one is not as in your face. Yes, it is a proportion. No, it's not a proportion. So this is really where cross product really comes into play. So we have 1.2 over 4.0 equals 2 over 5. Now, pause me for a second, and I'd like you to actually try this one with cross product and see what you get. Okay, So you should have 1.2 times 5 equals 2 times 4.0. Now, how I found that was I did that cross product in order to get 1.2 times 5 and 4.0 times 2. And that's how I got that. Now, 1.2 times 5 is 6. And 2 times 4.0 is 8. Now, does 6 equal 8? No, it doesn't. So in this case, this is not a proportion. Okay? So how we're looking for a proportion is that these numbers are going to equal. If they don't, then it's not a proportion. Okay, I would like you to try this one on your own. 2.1 over 3.5 and 3/7. So you should do this as 2.1 over 3.5 equals 3/7. Okay, so when you do your cross product, you should set up your proportion as 2.1 times 7 equals 3 times 3.5. Okay, so when you do 2.1 times 7, you should get 14.7 equals 3 times 3.5, which is 10.5. Okay, now ask yourself, does 14.7 equal 10.5? Well, clearly no. 14.7 does not equal 10.5. So this is no, not a proportion. I hope all of you saw that when you did that. Okay, well now we're going to throw in a little bit of algebra. Yay, algebra! Okay, so this one, as you can see, is a little bit different than the last one because I have a variable A. Okay. Now, I'm going to set this up exactly how I just did when I had my proportion just like this, how I set it up with the two ratios equal to each other. Okay. So I have A over 25 equals 52 over 100. And what I want to do is I want to make this a proportion. I want to make these equal ratios. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do what's called that cross product. Okay, so I'm going to cross multiply here, and I have 100 times A equals 25 times 52, which is 1300. Okay. Now, then you're going to divide by 100. Okay, and those cancel, so I'm left with A equals. Now, a cool thing about dividing by a bunch of zeros, cancel out those zeros, and I have A equals 13. So actually, when I go back in and plug in to my proportion, I have 13 over 25 equals 52 over 100. And now if I look at these are actually equal proportions. Okay, and I would like you to take a minute to solve this proportion, see if you can get it. Okay, so we set it up as k over 35 equals 3 over 7. And we do our cross product here. Make sure it's a cross, that they're crossing over each other, like that, like poison school bones, cross. And we do k times 7 equals 3 times 35. And when you do 3 times 35, you get 105. And you divide by 7 on both sides, and you get k equal to 15. Okay? And so this is going to be your solution for this k right here. So when I plug it back in, I should get 15 over 35 equals 3 over 7. Okay, and this right here is an equal proportion. All right, and then we've got to throw in some decimals, of course. So this is going to be used, obviously the same process as before. We're going to still do that cross multiplication. So we've got 10 over 8.4 equals 5 over m. So now you are going to set it up as your cross multiplication, and you get 10m equals 5 times 8.4. Remember, with cross products, we multiply across from each other. Okay? So when I multiply 5 times 8.4, I get 42, and I have 10m. You divide by 10 on both sides to solve for m, and m equals 4.2. Now, these are the examples that I would like you to have for class tomorrow. And I did it a little bit split screened. So these are this side of the screen. I want you to determine whether each pair of the ratios form a proportion. So this is going to be yes, no type answers. And this is number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3. And then over here, these are going to be solving each proportion. So you're going to get a number for each of these variables here. Okay, and this is 4, 5, and 6. And I'll be checking these tomorrow. Also, remember that you should have some questions written down. And we will begin with these practice problems and your questions tomorrow in class. Good luck.